RSPO is not about biodiversity or palm oil, it's about biodiversity and palm oil.
30% of the world's edible oil is palm oil. Grown mainly in Indonesia and Malaysia, oil palm is the highest yielding oil crop in the world. Over 6 million people derive their livelihood from it, and it generates over $200 billion in revenue. However, the large-scale deforestation and environmental harm caused by the rush to plant the crop concerns the world at large.
We look back to 1998 when we had a very severe weather conditions. We had El Nino, fire and haze spread all over the country, even reaching the neighboring countries. That was when people realized that the environmental impact of palm oil industry needs to be addressed.
This pressure has created lots of friction between producers and environmental NGOs.
We fight for climate justice, hence forest protection. It's for our children's needs, but not for corporate greeds.
The Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, or RSPO, was formed in 2004 as a voluntary organization to make palm oil production sustainable. Founded by multiple stakeholders in the palm oil value chain, it was a meeting ground for all parties to sit and plot a common path forward by developing agreed standards for sustainable production. The aim was to achieve economic development with environmental sustainability.
The perception of stakeholders in the West and the perception in our country is different.
Well, WWF is a global conservation organisation. We've been aware of some of the problems caused by expansion of palm oil for a long time, and we've been working with the industry since 2002. And part of that work was to form the Roundtable, which is a stakeholder group bringing together the industry and other players in the value chain for palm oil, along with NGOs and academics of interest and other organisations, to try and tackle some of those problems and develop the standards which have now led on to the certified sustainable palm oil that's available in the market.
RSPO has spent several years framing guidelines, principle and criteria, or P&C, for the production of sustainable palm oil. These P&C are not diktat, but a consensus by all the stakeholders. Specific principles and criteria are designed to protect biodiversity in both existing and new oil palm plantations. For instance, zero burn practices are mandatory for certification, and high conservation value areas are to be safeguarded.
So RSPO requires a biodiversity check. Now, if the land is rich in biodiversity, has endangered species, serves ecological functions, is valuable to mankind, then RSPO is very clear that those are no-go areas.
Third-party auditors monitor adherence to the principles. In late 2008, the first sustainable palm oil was certified. Firms such as United Plantations, New Britain Palm Oil and Sime Darby are now producing sustainable palm oil. After a slow and measured start, the industry is taking to sustainability in an unprecedented way. All the producing members of the RSPO have pledged to make 100% of their output sustainable, which implies that of the world's palm oil supply, ever-increasing volumes will be sustainable. RSPO faces huge challenges today.
There is a link between palm oil and climate change, and that link exists in deforestation. Expanding oil palm area almost invariably has meant in the past that forest was replaced with plantations. I think we need to attempt to break that link, which means that we must invest more in increasing yields.
The biggest challenge is the habitat shrinking, basically, then the forest conversion. And the biggest challenge within, especially in Aceh, is basically the rapid expansion of oil palm.
The organization has adopted voluntary standards on GHG emissions and is continuously striving to strike a balance between production growth, the environment, and society. The balance between profit, planet, and people.
People don't really believe what oil palm growers say. The first big move that we made was to decide to keep as a forest 14,000 hectares that we had the license to convert into palm oil.
The road ahead is uncharted, but RSPO is a shining example of how progress can be made through adversity, all with dialogue and perseverance.
There is no climate policy solution to climate change. The only way you can solve climate change in the long term is through development policy. Therefore, simply managing emissions, one way or the other, which is what climate policy is, will not solve the problem. And that is why those of us outside the RSPO look at you as an experiment that is too important to fail.
With RSPO, the palm oil industry is striving to be the world's first sustainable agricultural commodity and a beacon of hope to all. It has commanded a leading position and in time may be seen as a pace setter for sustainable agriculture.